Hello and welcome to Friday Happy Hour here on the Your Strata Property Facebook page. You are in the right place to be celebrating another week that was in Strata. I hope some of you have had a few wins, more wins than challenges, we do like to say. Welcome. It's good to be back. We were not here last week. Well, I wasn't here. I don't know if you guys were here, but I wasn't here. Had a commitment last week that could not be moved, that got in the way of happy hour. So I apologize for that, but I am definitely back, raring to go this week. If you are here with me bringing along your Friday drink, please feel free to post in the chat what you have with you today. I have bubbles. I have chosen green. It's kind of clashing with my purple here that I didn't really think that one through. It has been a busy week for me. If you can't tell by the rather tired circles under my eyes, it's been full on. I have been very unhealthy sitting in front of this computer screen doing lots and lots of typing work, paperwork, submissions, NCAT applications. Strata be crazy at the moment, guys. You guys are nuts out there. What is going on? A few dysfunctional schemes. I'm sure the Strata managers there will understand what I am saying. I am seeing quite a few of you come on in. I am sure that you are here to hear from our special guest today. If you can see from the title, our special guest is indeed someone that many of you know and love and will be missing from around the conference circuit. Daniel Borin is indeed our special guest, and I will be welcoming him in very soon. For now, as I like to do, please post into the comments a hello. It is much easier for me on the software that we use here to know that you're there. If you pop a little hello in the comments, let me know where you are, perhaps where you are coming to me from, what suburb you're in, what state you're in, and how your week in Strata is going. If you like, tell me whatever you like. Just good to know that you are there and enjoying happy hour. I am going to flick over and give you a little roundup of what has been happening in New South Wales. We have this week, it actually started last Friday, the 5th of June. We have our new regulations, both for our strata schemes and our community schemes. Our regulations that are helping our communities through some COVID difficulties brought about by the current pandemic. We now have our legislation that we've been waiting for in New South Wales. It has kicked off. Queensland's legislation kicked off a couple of weeks ago, and I do have a podcast episode coming up about Queensland's legislation. So Queenslanders, hang in there. You will be getting your summary. But very keen to let you know what the New South Wales regulations say. And I am seeing your hellos come on through in the comments now. I have Glenn from Piermont, hello. Terry is in the Sydney CBD. Genevieve is in Erskineville, how are you? And Bruce is here. Normally Piermont, Blackheath sometimes. What is the weather like, Bruce? It has been chilly. My Michelle was there, who you know, Bruce, last weekend, and it was cold as I heard. Hey, Debbie from Dubbo, and I can see a red wine there. That must be what you brought to happy hour, which is very exciting. Well, hello, and we are ready to go for happy hour. I am, as I have promised, going to give you a quick rundown on what the new legislation is in New South Wales for our strata and community schemes when it comes to managing the pandemic. So last Friday, we had the amendments to the strata schemes management regulation. So this is in the regulation, new part 11 in the regulation, as well as amendments to the community land management regulation. They started last Friday. I do have a link for you. I did have a link for you. Yes, I do have a link for you. I just couldn't see it. That Rochelle is going to pop into the comments. And that is part 11 of the Strata Schemes Management Regulation, new part here for New South Wales. What can we now do? What's the flexibility that has been introduced for our schemes? Now, this is relevant, as I understand it, to both strata schemes and community schemes. The legislation I'm linking to is just the strata schemes legislation, but identical legislation for our community schemes. We can now serve meeting notices by email if an email address has been specified as the address for service. Now, some of you may say, that's not new, Amanda. In New South Wales strata schemes, we've always been able to do that, at least since our 2015 amendments to our legislation. Well, the key point here is that community schemes can now do this as well. So that is something new for our community schemes, allowing meeting notices, whether it's general meeting or strata committee meeting notices, if a committee member is being served with a meeting notice as is required, then they can be served by email. The other thing we can now do in New South Wales is hold meetings other than in person. So we can have our electronic meetings. We can have our meetings in writing, even if we haven't opted in to that process. So previously that was the requirement, and you will have heard me talk about that for the last couple of months. You have to opt in New South Wales to have electronic meetings or meetings other than in person. And many schemes were not able to get together, concerned about safety and the need to practice social distancing to pass that resolution. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. It is now in Part 11 of our Strata Schemes Management Regulation that is permitted. You can have those electronic meetings. However, wait for this. This is new. The new rules make very clear that pre-meeting electronic voting cannot be used for the election of a strata committee. Now, we have all had this question so many times, haven't we? Here on this Facebook page, I get it from members in my community, I get it from clients. We can have electronic meetings and electronic voting. Can we elect the strata committee via pre-meeting electronic voting? Well, our legislation was always quiet on that. Interestingly, this new Part 11 is not quiet on that. It expressly says that pre-meeting electronic voting cannot be used for the election of a strata committee, that the new rules do not permit that. I want to be clear though, and I have had this question in my LinkedIn inbox, that if you are having an electronic meeting, so you're having a meeting via Zoom video, which I know so many of you are doing, you can definitely still elect your strata committee, call for nominations, oral nominations, note any written nominations, set the number and elect your new strata committee during a meeting that may be electronic. Okay, so the restriction is only on electing your committee via pre-meeting electronic voting. If you are electronic voting during a meeting, then yes, you can be electing your strata committee at an electronic meeting. I hope that makes sense. That was a question that was sent through to me. And if there is any confusion about that, please pop those in the comments and I will come back to that. What else can we do under our new Part 11? We can execute documents without a common seal. So we now have a process, and it's a good idea to have a read of it. Just follow that link and have a read of it. What needs to happen if the owner's corporation needs to execute a document? They can do it without a common seal. There are requirements there when it comes to witnessing, authorized witnesses, and witnessing via audio-visual link. But basically allowing a process where you can legally execute a document without the common seal, which is going to be helpful for those of you who do not have the common seal with you, maybe working from home and don't have that usual easy access. And finally, extending some time periods. The time period for the first AGM usually must be held within 2 months of a new scheme coming out of its initial period. That has now been extended to 6 months. We can have our first AGM 6 months after the end of the initial period. And also there is a rule in New South Wales where if you take money from one fund to use for the purposes of the other fund, you have to within 3 months resolve to reimburse the fund that you have taken from. That has now been extended out to 6 months for your reimbursement. And chatting to Rena, you'll hear us talk about this on the podcast next week. I'm not sure too many strata managers are following that rule anyway, resolving to reimburse when you borrowed money from one fund for the purposes of the other. But those of you who are very compliant and have been doing that, you've now got 6 months rather than 3 months to do that. So those are the big ticket changes, both for our strata schemes and our community schemes, amendments to each of our regulations there. If you are coming on in, and I can see lots more of you here, you're all keen for happy hour today, let me tell you. Pop me a hello. It's really lovely for me to see who we have online. I'm heading back up to see Anne, who's in Melbourne. Paul is keen to hear about the technology options. Paul, you are in the right place. Do I have the man for you? We are very shortly going to welcome in our special guest for today. I have Carol from, what is with Piermont? What is in the water at Piermont? You're all here for happy hour. Carol, you're my third Piermont attendee today. Something's going on over there. I know we have lots of great strata schemes over in Piermont. Jared is here from Manly. Bruce is telling me it's cold and misty, but the fire is keeping us warm, and you missed seeing Michelle. Yes, Michelle had some lovely pictures by the fire from the over past the Blue Mountains she was last week, Bruce. Thank you for that link, Rochelle. Hey, Ash, great to see you. Just popped in to say hello. My friend Ash Roy, fellow podcaster, productivity expert. Matthew is asking a question. Is it the same in Victoria? I assume, Matthew, are asking about the pre-meeting electronic voting, or rather the electronic voting for your strata committee. I know you sent me a separate question about that. Short answer, I don't know, sorry, Matthew, but maybe there is a clever cookie here today or later watching this video who can answer that for you. Otherwise, you are definitely in my inbox, so I will flick that question to one of my Victorian colleagues. And yes, just clarifying, thank you, Matthew, that question. And now you're coming in thick and fast. Louis, is it Louis? Have I pronounced that right? Thank you for the excellent info. I am going to, this is what I forget to do, guys. And Rochelle, my assistant extraordinaire, reminds me to show your comments on the screen. Louis in Maroubra, great to see you. Hey, Sean, lovely to see you. I'm getting a yep from Matthew. Diani is here. Excellent. I'm going to try and remember to pop your comments up on the screen too, guys. Send me a note if I forget to do that. All right, awesome. I am just going to go back to my sheet here to make sure I've covered off what I wanted to share with you in our welcome intro. And then I am going to bring you our very special guest. I know that you are here to hear from Daniel Borin, and I am bringing him on for you very, very soon. In case you don't know, Daniel is the Director of Client Success at the Maxsoft Group, comprising StrataMax, StrataPay, and Strata Cash Management. Very busy group of companies there. Daniel's diverse experience and dynamic background over the past 2 decades includes successful entrepreneurial ventures in Hong Kong, China, and the Philippines. Before pursuing these opportunities overseas after graduating from Monash University with a Bachelor of Business Marketing, Daniel worked in IT sales and consulting for well-known companies such as Hewlett-Packard and EMC here in Australia. In 2009, he returned to Australia to join the family business and has been able to achieve significant growth in the business during this time. He is a self-proclaimed technology evangelist, and as many of us know, he is asked to speak regularly on the use of new technologies today and into the future. Now, Daniel is also a past podcast guest way back, oh my gosh, this is almost 3 years ago, way back in July 2017. It is episode 69. Daniel joined me to share with us the answer, the very important answer to the question, why the Wi-Fi keeps dropping out in your apartment and how to solve it. So if you want to solve that problem, episode 69 is where you head to hear from Daniel. But right now, forget about podcast episodes, forget about audio only. I have Daniel Borin here with us. I'm almost said in person, but almost in person, virtually. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me, Amanda.
It is wonderful to have you here with us today, Daniel. Thank you for making the time. And after reading out all of your tech experience and your love of all things tech, I imagine you've been in a little honeymoon bubble, a technology bubble, going, yes, yes, this is my time. Am I right?
It's I'm not at all sad about having to be in my bubble here. I'm pretty happy with my bubble. The only thing I'm not able to do as much is to drive my technologically advanced car, which I love so much, which we don't need to talk about, by the way.
Oh, okay. Is there a bit of a pain point? Okay, no, we're not talking about it. I don't want to open old wounds. Now, listen, have you brought a drink to happy hour? I'm not sure if
Gin and tonic tonight.
excellent. I do usually. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
There we go. I usually make a point of asking my guests before I put them on the chair live what they might be drinking, just to make sure that we've covered that off, because they might not have anything, and that could be a little sticky
Bit
situation.
awkward.
And I forgot to check with you, so I'm glad you have a G&T with you today. We have so many, as we've already seen in some of the comments, so many people here today to hear what you have to share, and I imagine ask some questions about how we can best use technology, particularly during this time, where we might be going wrong, what your tips are when it comes to running a business, working from home, being in a strata scheme. We are so going to get into all of that. And I do want to let our viewers, not just listeners, as I'm used to saying, our viewers know that they can pop their questions into the comments for us. And for as long as I've got Daniel here, we will answer those for you. Strata questions, tech questions. Let's get into it. So Daniel, first of all, I know that you have been cleverly using technology to help get through this difficult, uncertain, unprecedented time. How have you done that when it comes to being in isolation, having to social distance? What kinds of technology have you been using, and do you recommend to get us through COVID ISO?
Thank you. That is the $1 million question, and it's when I say it's $1 million question, there was a lot of products from week one, really, of isolation that became much harder to get and much more expensive, and it was a real problem for people that were forced to work from home. They didn't have the right necessarily networks set up. They didn't have, they had no sort of good monitor set up. They didn't have ergonomic sort of things set up. They didn't have webcams. They didn't have headsets. So you could see like wildfire across every retailer. Those prices went up, stocks went down. You're having to pre-order things. So the bare essentials really were got to get a webcam and a headset of some sort, right? Otherwise, your isolation is all the worse for the fact of not really being able to communicate face to face, although be that face to screen to face. So that was really interesting to watch, and we within our company we had to sort of get supplies and so forth, and there was certainly some wheeling and dealing with various retailers and stuff to secure what we needed, to at least give people the minimum amount, and we're still sort of getting the remainder of the webcams out because they were just snapped up, and the only thing left was like $300 webcams, which are kind of unnecessary just for standard communication. For a
Did they take kilos off you, or to fix the skin? What do they do for $300?
They're not worth that much, but it's just because there was no stock, prices just went through the roof. So it's a bit sad that that's what it came to. But so you certainly, like, I'm sure most of the people out there have got that sorted now. There are some low tech things that just you wouldn't have thought of that have made it really easy, but also were sort of suffered the same price increase, stock challenge, and this is one of them. So it's basically a phone or tablet holder.
Of course.
So when you're talking to someone, I mean, we've all done this one, right? Where you're like trying to talk to someone, it's like they're seeing up your nose.
Yeah.
So you get one of these, you stick your phone in it, you put it at a good distance, you might plug your headset in or something, and it's been an absolute sort of lifesaver in all different sort of scenarios when you weren't easily able to connect with your webcam, and both business and personal. I mean, we'll carry, bring this into different areas of the house, and we'll Skype with relatives or we'll Zoom with someone. So they were about $15 on average before COVID-19. I bought that one for $37, and like $40, $50. So there was certainly some combination of low stock and opportunism going on there. So those were kind of your basics, right? Widescreen monitors were another one that sort of went out of stock and were hard to get through. I had friends asking me for advice around that because, they're working from home from like a little 14-inch monitor, and they're used to having 2 or 3 screens at work. And it's difficult to be productive with some tasks. So getting hold of a good widescreen format monitor was another key one. Personal sort of side, there's some interesting ones. This is something which has got me through the gym. The gym sessions that I used to be able to do in person, I've been doing with this VR headset with a couple of controllers that you basically strap to, and you can do various fitness stuff. So that's my morning routine. I usually spend about half an hour virtual boxing, and it's I used to do that at the gym, and that's great. I really miss doing that with people in person, but it's amazing how convenient and how well that's done a job for me that usually had to go to the gym for, and so immersive. This is actually one of those technologies that if through the isolation and what we've gone through, if this had just sort of penetrated a little bit further into the general market, it really would have saved, or not saved, but would have given so much more to people through connectivity with people. You can watch a movie, you can sit in a cinema and watch a movie with someone with this on, and you have a little avatar. You could have the cinema full, and you don't have to observe social distancing in virtual reality. You could be sitting right next to someone, chat to them about something. You could sit back on a sofa and watch your favorite episode of something on Netflix together.
That is awesome. But tell me this, my little boy has a VR headset, which I'm pretty sure was low range, bottom of the range toy, and it looks a little bit like yours, but I suspect it's quite different. Are we talking big money here for something like that? Is this still out of the reach of most people?
Honestly, they've come out with progressively cheaper versions of it. So if you're not like an avid gamer and it needs to be just instant refresh, and you're playing like really immersive games, they don't have to be that expensive. The brand, mine's an Oculus Rift, which is owned by Facebook, but the Oculus have a version called Oculus Go, which doesn't even need a cable actually. And they're sort of in the sub $500 range, and you don't need a computer or anything with that. This one, you've got to have, powerful computer and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of options actually, and there's other companies that have gone into that area, and there are, the number of experiences and the number of different applications and games and stuff for a market that's not yet mature is quite incredible.
Very, very cool, and just amazing to think where we could be in the future, not too distant future. Some simple things that I have been looking at, working with, and had some friends recommend to me. First of all, some people don't realize that you can actually have different audio to speak up, different mic. So you mentioned there, Daniel, a headset, and that's where you will be having the headset. You'll have your mic in the same. Thank you. He's going to give me a demo. Perfect. Everything's wrapped up the same there. Some people may have noticed I do something different. I have my earbuds in, and then I have my podcasting mic, which is just out of shot there. So I don't have the all-in-one setup, which can be quite handy if you want a particular quality of mic, if you want a high quality mic like for podcasting, and then have something different in your ears. So that is possible. Don't forget about that. The other thing that was recommended to me recently is when you have the little Apple earbuds, which are the Bluetooth ones that go in the case, that just go flat so quickly. See, this is why I invited this guy on. Tell you what, I'm not prepared with any of these things, but he's got them.
Go on, boys.
and they go flat, right? Once you've owned these things for 6 months, the battery just doesn't seem to last as long as it should. But what you can do then is just put one in your ear. Just put one in your ear. So one is always in the little case charging, and one is in your ear, right? So if you're watching webinars, or even if you are just using it for a video like this, when you have to listen to somebody in your ear, but you're using a higher quality mic, just put one in, other one's charging, switch them out. How cool is that? So
great
little
idea.
tips.
Practical.
I am heading over to the comments. I'm seeing a comment there from Mark Atkinson. Good to see you, Mark. Pretty cool VR headset there, indeed. Paul is asking a question about internet speed. Are we ready to go there yet, Daniel? Are we going to jump into internet speed?
I think we're back in episode 60. Was it 67?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Okay.
Yeah. So Paul is saying, how big a problem is internet speed in other strata communities with everyone working at home? Have your networks been up to it? Is that what you're hearing? Is that the problem? Everybody working at home, is that a thing?
It is a thing. And you've got the added problem that people that didn't have necessarily great internet setup or whatever are now hotspotting like crazy. So you've got all of these mobile phones on hotspot, you've got the wireless routers on hotspot, and you can create a lot of interference between everyone's Wi-Fi networks conflicting with each other. So that's one of the challenges. The second challenge is obviously in areas where there is limited cellular bandwidth network, then you may actually be sort of trying to all squeeze through the same pipe. I go back to the recommendation from 67, which was to get yourself just a modern router, go down to Harvey Norman and get something which is running the latest frequency, which is 5.4 gigahertz. That won't conflict with your neighbors so much. It's much better. But if you're on the older stuff, I had a staff member, when he started working from home, he said he was getting around 2 megabits, 3 megabits a second when he should be getting 50. So we ran a little test on his phone. There's an app. You can download an app called Wi-Fi Analyzer, and it shows you all of the conflicting Wi-Fi networks in the same area. And he was just able to change the channel he was on. But the simplest thing you could do is just go get one of the modern ones and plug that in. And at the very least, you're maximizing the chance that you're going to get decent internet speed. What happens beyond that, in terms of your ISP, how you're connecting through your strata, there are a myriad of potential challenges that may happen with that. But all in all, I think the networks have held up pretty well, to be honest, considering the sheer shift, right, of work from home. Be interested to hear what your other guests today are experiencing as well.
Yeah, I've just put a comment up there from Genevieve, who says we have that problem and are looking to pay for fiber to the home throughout the strata. So yes, we're lucky enough in my building to have fiber to the building. And having said that, though, we were getting some terrible speeds a little while back, and of course had to trace the problem to a faulty cable from the I'm so tech. I am so tech. I don't even know what the words are. From the cupboard that is on our floor that has the box where it comes up from the basement, the cable that was then running to our apartment was a faulty cable. So having to identify those issues when you think you should have very fast internet and you just don't. And you often do start backwards. You start from It's the Wi-Fi, and
Yeah.
then it's the router, and
Yep.
then it's the cable to the cupboard, and then it's the cable from the cupboard to the MDF room, and then it's the cable from the MDF to the street, and having numerous different parties involved and different responsibilities. So where does my responsibility as an owner start and end when I have trouble with my internet? When is it the owner's corporation's responsibility? And it can be a difficult conversation to have if you're the only one having trouble, or maybe you do a lot of video and uploading and downloading and webinars and live video where you cannot drop out. So you're the pain in the backside in the building who wants the super fast, excellent internet, and everybody else is fine because their Netflix is working. So it is a very interesting situation to be in when you're a resident in a strata building in these times, trying to get the best internet you can. But so far, my new cable that was fixed and run in a particular way that when the electricians put it in, they said, Amanda, we can make it look really pretty and we can put it into the wall and we can, and I said, I don't care. I just need it to work. I don't care how it looks. So now I have a rather ugly cable that runs through my living room, but hey, have we had any dropouts? No, we are good. We are all good. So yes, thank you very much for sharing that, Daniel. And do go back to podcast episode. I'm just looking at it now. It was episode number 69, why the Wi-Fi keeps dropping out in your apartment and how to solve it with Daniel Borin. So some really, really good tips there. When we are talking about strata in particular, Daniel, you are always at the cutting edge. You are at the forefront, bringing to us, usually at our SCA conferences, what's new, what the predictions even for the future are. Tell us now, because we've been craving some of these updates that we have been missing out on, not being able to get together in person. What's happening on the strata front? How is technology supporting this new world? How is it adapting to new challenges, particularly when it comes to strata?
Great question, and I've had a listen to some of your previous podcasts or happy hours, and one of the topics that's come up is the video conferencing thing, and it's amazing how quickly and smoothly that the strata industry has moved to be able to do that. I'm really impressed and buoyed by how that's gone, and that both sides, the owners, the strata managers, have really accepted it as a way forward. And I'm certainly hoping that this is going to be the start of something beyond COVID-19, because we can be very productive, we can be very effective and efficient in this video format, as you and I are effectively having a meeting now. So wholesale take up from clients. Zoom is obviously the big name that we've heard across across the world, really, and their number increases have just been out of sight. So they're all very good solutions. I won't get into some of the security concerns and so forth that have hit the headlines, but they're all good solutions, and they're very effective for what you need in strata. The one aspect that is probably so compliance-based is just the voting process, and that's where the concept of pre-meeting voting has been very important, because the logistics of running votes through a web sort of stream are somewhat challenging potentially. So there has been an absolute uptake across the board for clients, for strata managers and owners taking up that technology. And we've seen in our own numbers, just in the last month, a 50% increase in meetings held through that technology with pre-meeting voting, and it's essential, really, because it's such an effective way to get a result, notwithstanding some of the challenges around committee elections. But that's something that is not currently possible in New South Wales, but it's something that's well accepted up in Queensland, where I'm currently sitting, and that's very effective. Meaning that by the time your meeting rocks around, you've actually got a fairly good result already, quorums and all the rest of it.
Yeah, excellent. And we're seeing so many people, strata managers, residents, owners, becoming more familiar with these processes, more comfortable with them. I know we held my strata committee meeting the other week by Zoom, 4 o'clock. We logged on, and notwithstanding my fellow committee member was just a few floors below me, we were very efficient. Less chit chat, less snacks, enjoying the snacks while we're having the committee meeting. So save that time for socializing and get the job done. One thing that I have been doing, and I have always done this whenever I've had a meeting with a client who, for whatever reason, can't come into the office, they're too far away, or they choose not to, we do meet over Zoom, and that meeting is always recorded. The beauty of that, of course, the client gets the recording. They can go away with it, they can keep it, they can think about it, they can replay it for their son who's going to help them with the legal proceedings, whatever it is. I say, this is your recording, yours to have. Don't worry about taking furious notes, nor do I, because the recording becomes part of my file. So many clients have been appreciative of that, and it's just a really great way to work. I can always go back and check what did we say we were going to do. The other very easy to use and free piece of software that I've been using and have for some time is Loom, Google's Loom, Loom. And that is a screen recording software where you can both record your audio and record your screen to show people what you're doing, and great for training. I have been using it recently to walk through issues with clients. So I'm not doing it live in real time with them. I used it this week when I put together an application for the tribunal, and I had sent it to the client. They had a few questions about it, and I spent 20 minutes recording my screen and talking, explaining why I had drafted the application a certain way and answering their questions. They then watched that video and listened to it while they were driving in the car, and they said that it was just fabulous. It has been so easy for us to understand why you've drafted the application you have, and now we can move forward, and we didn't even have to make a time to talk. I recorded it at a time that suited me. They watched it at a time that suited them. So I'm seeing a lot of those things I've been doing for a little while, I'm doing more often, and I'm also seeing other professionals, strata managers, lawyers, and definitely committee members becoming more aware of those options and taking them up as well.
Great point. And it's, I think we've kind of come to expect as well and understand that not everything needs to be a highly polished, production. That's the beauty of the internet and, bloggers and YouTubers and stuff. Some of them are very polished. Some of them, you see them just recording it in their car from a phone. And it is such an effective medium, to get the audio, the visual, and use that as a communication tool, either live or recorded. So definitely can see why you're using that. And one of the in the audio visual aspect as well, what we and a lot of our clients have been using is Microsoft Teams. And that's something which, beyond just being a meeting tool to have a face-to-face with someone, it's that instant sort of engagement. So it's kind of, if you can imagine, like a Skype just for your little business or your community, and you can connect with people, you can chat, you can post things to different channels so that you've got different teams of people working on things, or working groups can post things to channels, sort of, I guess, in that way, like Facebook. But it's got heaps of apps that you can add on. You can do polls. You can do lots of things, and you can also easily share your screen. It's just one click to go, hey, I was working on this. Click. Can you have a look? Do you want to drive? Okay, you drive. And that's been essential. Like, this transition to work from home would not have been anywhere near as successful without tools like that in place. And I think one of the added advantages of that is that you can become so much more available to people in that format than you would if you had to drive to meetings. So, I've had days where I've had a meeting in Melbourne, a meeting in Victoria, like somewhere, Sydney, Brisbane. Ordinarily, I'd be lucky to get 3 appointments just on Brisbane and the Gold Coast in one day. But now, you can attend these instantly, and really still engage. There's obviously some of the personal, the handshakes and the things that we can't do anyway right now that you do miss. But I think it's going to be a really interesting world on the other side of this, where we do have the option to be there face to face, but we're actually using other methods and other technologies to augment that.
I'm really looking forward to the large scale conferences online. And I say that a little bit cheekily because you guys know me. Yes, I've got something in the works. It's coming.
Oh, hello.
It's coming.
Okay.
Yes.
A cunning plan, maybe.
Yes, indeed. I get bored. We gotta we gotta mix things up. I am heading back over to the comments, and I am seeing a long comment there from Mark. I am Mark Atkinson, WA lawyer, previous podcast guest, good friend. I am going to put up on the screen, Mark, but I have a feeling it's going to be partly cut off. So apparently there has been an interesting interim decision in Queensland about electronic voting, and Mark has given us the name there, Watermark Residences. I'll come back and I'll put, assuming that's reported, Mark, or you're just on the inside, I will put a link to that one so our Queenslanders can go have a look. The adjudicator held that no owner had suffered or was going to suffer any detriment as a result of the way the meeting was being held. The committee apparently took significant steps to ensure that no owner was disadvantaged by the failure of the body corporate to strictly comply with the legislative requirements of holding meetings. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Mark. I think that was predicted by our Queensland practitioners. Talking to Chris Irons on Happy Hour, former commissioner for body corporates up there in Queensland, and Frank Higginson about what they expected to happen in Queensland, deciding these kinds of issues in the era of COVID. And as long as owners, corporations, body corporates, I should say, in Queensland were acting reasonably, it was assumed that the Queensland adjudicators would take that kind of approach. So interesting to see these decisions coming through.
Good, some practical decisions. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be many examples of that.
Yes, I hope so. Chris Sargent, building manager in Victoria. I hope I've got that right, Chris. Any cheap solutions for providing subterranean Wi-Fi or 3G, especially for underground car parks?
It's a great question, and I'd like to know why. Like, what are you trying to connect? Because there's, for subterranean connectivity, low power area networks, which are different to standard Wi-Fi or 3G, are excellent. If you don't need something to have huge bandwidth of connectivity, these low power wide area networks are amazing. They can penetrate meters of concrete. They can connect to devices that can be battery powered and last for years. So if it's something to do with asset sort of tracking and management, or if you want to know the temperature or different things about various devices or machinery, there's better solutions than the standard Wi-Fi and 3G for that. So they're called wide area low power networks, and there's the most common one's called LoRaWAN, LoRaWAN.
There you go. Some helpful information there, I am sure, Chris. Thank you for that question. Jared is having a general meeting by Zoom on Monday. The building has 162 owners. Yes, very exciting. Jared, I'm not sure if you were here for Happy Hour a few weeks ago. Rena and I were talking about this because the question came up, do you find owners are more or less engaged when it comes to virtual meetings? And Rena, as a strata manager, was saying we tend to get about the same turnout. You would think that you would get more because it's easier to log in and be involved. But in a building where you might be getting 50% turning up to meetings, we generally get 50% on Zoom as well. So I know some chair people and strata managers have been a little bit nervous about holding these kinds of meetings, thinking that you're going to have 160 people turning up and having to wrangle all of them through software that you might not be familiar with. If you are feeling that way, Jared, if it's your first time having to coordinate something like that, then hopefully we can give you comfort that the show up rate is probably 50% or less. So still a lot of people on a call.
And you have control of the mic. You just can't press mute on someone when you're live in person, but
Yes, there were definitely a lot of comments from strata managers when we were talking about that one, that you just mute them, give them their 1 minute and then press mute. How cool is that? Yeah, sorry, it's not working.
Yes,
I don't know what it is. Yes, so let us know how you go with that, Jared. Genevieve is asking a great question here about what to use. I imagine what software to use for pre-meeting voting, a SurveyMonkey or email. Yes, I know some Strata managers are using SurveyMonkey. I think Natalie Fitzgerald, Strata manager, posted on one of our chats here about, I think, maybe Google Forms as well. So that's kind of your free. So Google Forms will be free. SurveyMonkey for a higher level will be paid. What do you think, Daniel?
I guess it depends on the size and the scale and the implications of not getting it right. You know, there's lots of ways that you could obtain votes. Less ways that you could do it and fit the legislative framework, probably, or at least do that easily. So to take something like SurveyMonkey and try to fit that into how things need to be run legislatively would be quite difficult. So there are products out there that focus on that. So I would encourage you to talk to, are you self-managed or you have a Strata manager? Your Strata manager is your best port of call, because they may have something already that they use. That plugs into whatever they're doing. So it's probably more looking at the detail of what you're trying to do.
Yep. Sounds like good guidance to me. Now, Daniel, you mentioned to me that you have been using some family-friendly technology to connect and to engage with friends, friends with kids and your own kids. And you had some tips there to share with us. Shall we get into that?
Yeah, look, it's been so, just having some time at home has meant that we've been able to connect with so many people that we wouldn't have ordinarily been able to fit into the normal day. I mean, or at least at the same frequency. So my wife's from the US. I've lived overseas for many years. So we do have a lot of friends and family in different states, in different cities and countries. And they've also been in isolation as well. So when you give someone a call or email them and say, hey, can we catch up on Zoom? They're not saying, oh, I've got to take my kids to swimming, or we've got a performance, or I'm out doing X, or I'm traveling for work. You're actually really able to meet and connect. So it's been lots of fun to look at different ways to do that. So we've tried sort of more low-tech things with starting with, you've got to have some way to FaceTime, whether it's FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or whatever. Charades has been really fun with different people, and it seems to translate quite well over like a video call medium. But there's some really interesting games out there that have been created for this type of engagement, and one of them that you can check out is called Jackbox Games, and it's basically all of these different games that you can play where you connect to a single sort of server or place, but you each can use your mobile to play the game. And some of them are trivia based, some of them are guessing what a sound is, some of them might be puzzle based. So Jackbox Games has got heaps of really cool stuff that you can do. Another one, if we've all played probably Pictionary, the physical Pictionary. There's one called Gartic.io or Gartic.io, Gartic.io, and it's just a free version of Pictionary online. When you can also connect to, so basically you just give the link to someone, then they can draw on with their mouse or on their phone screen, and you get to guess over the actual interface. But you can do that with your Zoom or with your Skype, so everyone's laughing away and giggling, and we've had heaps of fun with overseas relatives on that. One of the things we realized we didn't have and that we needed coming into COVID-19 is we didn't have a Nintendo Switch, and we had 3 young children at home, and I would have said that's probably the most essential technology for that start, when we had, like, it was just 24/7 kids at home, and we didn't have a Nintendo Switch. They were out of stock around the world. Yes. And I was very jealous hearing about all of my friends that are just literally at the end of the tether, and I'll just hand the Switch to the kids, and it's sorted. So I'd be interested to hear what people have, how they've been entertaining their kids and so forth, because that's probably one of the earlier challenges we had with kids home from school, wasn't it?
Yes. What we discovered was the virtual play dates, where you set up generally a FaceTime call or a WhatsApp video call, and kids had the phones and they went off and had their play date. And as long as they were supervised, because, well, but moderately supervised, you're within earshot because you don't know what they're actually showing each other on the video. I did catch my son going into my bedroom saying, "And this is mummy's room, and this is mummy's bathroom." And look at there, the school not need to see all of that. But they have lots of fun because it's like having a friend there to say, "Here, this is what my bedroom looks like, and these are my favorite games." And the virtual play dates have been a bit of a lifesaver back when kids were here full time, but back at school now, so a little bit of normality returning, which is good.
It's definitely been a nice change of pace. And speaking of that, those probably the first couple of months, having some like noise cancelling headphones. I'm not sure how many people had to work on the dining room table
Yes.
with all of the madness going around, but a good set of noise cancelling headphones that you could stream a little bit of music to, and a Spotify account along with that was really essential to surviving the initial, wave of kids at home and all of that. It's quite crazy.
So what's happening with your team now, Daniel? You've got lots going on with your various companies and lots of people, as you were saying earlier, to manage and either continue them working from home or moving back to office spaces. Where are you guys at across the country, really, with your team?
Yeah, so 90% of our staff started working from home in March, and the majority of our staff are on the Gold Coast. We have some staff outside, but they're sort of used to working remotely anyway. But we were quite fortunate that we had the Commonwealth Games in the last couple of years, which when that lead up to that was happening, they had people from the Commonwealth Games coming to businesses, telling businesses, you need to take 40% of your staff out of the office and work from home because the traffic that this Commonwealth Games is going to bring in is going to grind these cities in the southeast corner of Queensland to a halt. So we started our contingencies then to implement the remote technologies and make sure that every staff member could work from home, that they had access to something like Microsoft Teams. And that was an absolute godsend for us because as soon as it was apparent where things were going, we just sent everyone home. 10% had to remain to do some of the things that you just have to physically be there for. But the transition has been so much better than we could have expected, Amanda, with staff, first of all, appreciating the ability to do that and, feeling that they were supported in that regard. But secondly, the flexibility, the time savings, people that had, an hour commute to work or 30, 40 minutes were just absolutely delighted. And generally we saw people giving more, and there's some give and take with that. I mean, especially when kids were home and stuff, you did sometimes lose portions of productivity. But we recently surveyed all the staff, and overwhelmingly everyone has said that they've been more productive, and actually everyone has said, even when we go back to the office, they want to retain some level of work from home. Almost half actually would like to work permanently from home, which is interesting. And we have different sort of groups of people like developers and stuff. It's right up their alley to work from home. That's something that they're more geared towards, whereas some of the more external facing parts of the business, we're sort of thinking maybe just a couple of days a week. So that's been really good. Teams has been great, and the technologies for remote desktop and terminal servers and all of that. And we've seen that across all of our clients, leveraging those technologies and cloud-based servers and stuff.
Yeah, good on you. Definitely those businesses who had it pretty much worked out before they needed it in terms of technology, flexible working options, being able to move quickly and be agile in that way. They're the ones who have been able to just get on with it. And it's either business as usual or businesses going gangbusters, which is great. And so many more businesses who are this time around putting in place what they need to so that they're ready to move quickly next time. I think it has taken some time for us all to sort of settle into a new way of working, get used to perhaps being at home, having to carve out that separate time away, shut the door perhaps, tell the kids, no, this is actually a Tuesday at 2 o'clock and I'm not usually playing Nintendo with you. I'm usually working. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I found for myself a real overload when it comes to screen time. And this week in particular, because I've had a few tribunal deadlines, my eyes are falling out of my head. And I can really feel how the screen has been impacting my eyes. And it's one thing I had on my list to sneak in a little question from me to you. What should we be doing with our screens and or our eyes to stop that, whether it's headaches or dry eyes or stinging, or I know there's a lot of, there's either glasses you can wear or things you can put on your screen. Any tips there?
So yeah, we've seen that with staff in the office that have gotten similar sort of symptoms from overexposure to screens. The recommendations really are the proper lighting. So you don't want all the light just coming from your monitor. You want good background lighting, and you want to have lots of opportunity to get depth in your visual field rather than just staring at the screen, so that you can often alternate between looking in off to the distance and back to, you get tired because you've just got one focal length and you're sticking to it. So you want to try to cast your gaze afar and take, if you have the opportunity to take a walk and get off the screen and put your buds in and take the calls on the walk and stuff. But yeah, you actually absolutely, we're not made to just be stuck to screens 24/7. So you've got to give yourself a break, give yourself a walk, get some fresh air, and as much as possible, look somewhere else. While you're thinking, you don't have to stare at your screen. You can look off and try to set yourself off where you can look like even if it's leaving the door open a bit to your home office, so you can look through into the background or so forth, rather than just being flat against a wall, where the wall is actually no further in depth than the monitor.
Yeah, and standing up perhaps when you're on the phone call and looking out the window while you're on that phone call. That's something I've tried to get into the habit of, and indeed that's what Melissa McPherson is saying here. Look out the window. Good tip. And make sure we take time off. It is a Friday afternoon here in this side of the country, and all around the country at this time, really. Some more ready for the weekend than others, but we need to take that time on the weekend, especially when we're working at home, making sure that we have that time off. And now we are able to perhaps do more things outside, do a bit more socializing, go out to dinner, go out to venues where we can, and enjoy some time with friends to make sure that we're slowly easing back into that. I know it can be a bit overwhelming. I was out last weekend and a few times I felt completely overstimulated. I kept saying there is too much going on out here. There are too many people around. There is too much in my ears, in my face, too noisy, too loud, because we've been under the covers for a few months. Time to get back out there.
So true.
Well, we are. That is another happy hour, just about wrapped up. It always goes so fast. I know there are a few questions that have popped into the comments there that I haven't managed to get across to. So I will be back and I will give you the direction that you need. There's a specific question there about New South Wales proxies, which I will jump in there for you, Zlata. But great to see everybody here. If you have enjoyed happy hour, if you want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible, helping owners, residents, strata managers around the country, then give us a thumbs up, give us a smiley face, a love heart, and Facebook will be able to send this out far and wide to the people who need it. Thank you so much for being with us, Daniel. Is there anything that you wanted to add that I haven't given you the opportunity to jump in on?
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. It's been so much fun. It feels, we're lacking some of these social interactions, and it's so nice to meet with you and your your other guests here with us today. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. I look forward to this on Friday afternoon, so I get a bit sad if I miss out. So great to be here with you all, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch you here next time.
Good night.